All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets for this Monday night showdown between the Detroit Lions and the Las Vegas Raiders. But as always, I do like to start out with that quick recap from yesterday. So I'm starting out with the good here. The good was that the NBA props really crushed it. The only miss on the day was Lillard for more than 43.5 points, rebounds, and assists. That's the thing with NBA. He was ice cold shooting the basketball. That's it is what it is. This one was very bittersweet. I had the Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk stack with this one twice. I ran out twice. This one ended up getting taken off the board and it missed. And in the closing period of the game, he was at one for most of the game and I got 2 shots late. So that was pretty unfortunate there, but overall really good for NBA. Now let's get into the bad and then we'll get into the okay. So the bad was that the Sunday Night Football props were pretty bad. But that being said, like freaking Cole Kmet and Robert Tonyan, mostly Cole Kmet, is like, Jesus, spread the wealth around. Like, this is why I like you, Banjit, because you've been getting other players involved, especially after the start that Darnell Mooney had. All right, that one's safely hidden. Tyler Scott's kind of unfortunate. Banjit did miss him on one where that would have got over. But I want to point this out, like, guys, this is why I don't like running out these rushing props, because to me, they are very much, even though the data is set to bet those, they are very much the least predictable. Like Banjit, you would have thought would have had a design rushing attempt. He did not. And then Justin Herbert, he just didn't need to. And all in all, like in retrospect, I probably did force that one a little bit, and that's on me. I apologize, guys, there. And then we look at the Sunday one. I'm pretty actually okay with this one. Anyone that does prop betting knows that this is actually not a bad bet slip. Devin Singletary missed out on his over yards by 0.5, which is very bittersweet, but I want to point out, like, Matt Breida barely misses by 0.5, so that kind of evens out. The one thing that kind of sucked was that Singletary started the game out with a -7 yard carry. I'm wondering if that was a toss. I haven't got a chance to watch that just yet, but that was bittersweet. And then Mostert, he didn't record a catch in this game. That's the first game thus far this season where he didn't record a catch. All in all, that's fine. And on the day, it was pretty darn good. I think anyone that followed the coverage knows that Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Brock Purdy stack was really awesome. And if you guys just use the best bets from really the cheat sheet, you did pretty well as well. And guys, to me, I want to echo the point. Like, that is why I go through the process and give you guys my thoughts on each and every bet as well, whether it's a good bet or bad bet or it's a decent bet. And last Sunday, we saw that. Like, it was very much a slate in which Vegas was like the most correct, I would say. You look at Rice for over fantasy score. He got his over fantasy score, which was one of the better prop bets on the day as well, by 0.1. So it was a very tight board. But that's why I go through this, so you guys can apply the prop bets the way you guys see fit. And then just lastly, touching on, I know we've had an awesome October, up 80 units. And so I don't really want to harp on this too much, but like days like yesterday where the Sunday Night Football props was bad, I kind of, in a weird way, I get excited for that, because we know that those days are going to come. You can't just continuously run hot. And it's finally nice to have like a slip that went under 50% by a decent margin. So because it's an odds thing, you're not going to continuously do that. I think most people get that. All right, let's get into today's slip. Looking at, we got the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Detroit Lions. Okay, the Lions are 7.5 point favorites, which I've been pretty good at kind of nailing these games. I mentioned, heck, my Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings one as one that really stood out as one we should probably be attacking. Heck, I mentioned that with Minnesota the previous week as well. I feel like, and I could be completely wrong here, I do feel like the Lions got a little bit exposed last week, and the Raiders are a team that can get home against any other team. And the thing that made them struggle, the Lions, was that Jared Goff was getting pressure. Jared Goff, when he doesn't get pressure, is like Matt Ryan during his MVP season, maybe a little bit less than that. Jared Goff with pressure is kind of like Derek Carr. And so that's really going to be the determining factor tonight, is whether or not they can get pressure. And that might come down to like Jahmyr Gibbs pass blocking, really, because we know David Montgomery is a pretty good pass blocker there. David Montgomery is still out in this game, which does mean we'll probably see a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs. And last week we saw 86% of the snaps. Now, I think a little bit of that might have been due to Craig Reynolds being a little bit banged up in that game. We don't know for sure. And then we also have ASB currently questionable with the illness. I'm expecting him to play. And then we look at the Las Vegas Raiders. Really, like Daniel Carlson, questionable with the groin injury. That's never good for a kicker. I'm actually curious as to see what happens there. But we know that Jimmy G is going to be active in this game. And that's where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to say the Raiders are going to win. We saw some weird stuff happen this past Sunday. I think they might cover. And so, guys, like today, we just really are not getting good Sunday Night Football props. It is what it is. That's the slate that we have. We'll try to find some, prop bets that we can go in on. Let's start with this Jahmyr Gibbs one. I do find this a little bit interesting. The 15.5 rushing attempts, the fact that it's being projected as the over. And so I want to start with like Craig Reynolds, like how much of him playing limited snaps last week was because he was banged up. He came in with a hamstring and toe injury, and maybe they're just limiting him because he has looked really good. And don't get me wrong, like Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously going to be a stud. Finally had a really good game last week, but he was heavily involved in the passing game because of the negative game script that they were in. Now you would imagine in a game where they're ahead, you look at this game against Atlanta when he did get, 59% of the snaps, he did get over that 15 carries. And if they are playing with the lead, like this is a bet that you make where you make it based solely on how you think the game's going to go. If you think the lines are going to be ahead and that Vegas is right with that projection that they have of 7.5 points, then you are betting Gibbs for over 15 rushing attempts. If you're like me, where you're saying, maybe the Raiders keep it close for long enough, then that'd probably be one that I stay away from. But I want to echo this point, 52.6% chance that we don't love those odds. Sam Laporta for under 4 receptions. We can see the average Vegas line is heavily favoring the under at 4.5, but they do have the line set at 4.5. Still not the best one there. Now we look at it, guys, like basically every single game but one against Carolina, which is the team that you rush the football against, he's been able to get there to at least 4. And so I get why they're favoring the under there, but this one to me feels like it's going to be a push. And obviously if they're playing from behind, that should benefit him as well, but Vegas doesn't think that's going to occur. So I think that's why we are seeing the under being slightly favorited there. Then continuing on, like another game script one, Josh Reynolds under 2.5 receptions, which his snap counts were kind of down one of the weeks, but all of them pretty much 70% of the snaps. ASB is back in this game as well. Like we shouldn't be worrying about that. I think he's going to play. Raymond playing about 30 to 40% of the snaps. Jameson Williams, we wonder how much snaps he'll play or how many snaps he'll play. And then Antone Green, who was really kind of a preseason stud, he saw an uptick in targets. Now I think that's a little bit just due to the game flow. And Marvin Jones Jr. is no longer with the team. I want to call that out as well. So all that being said, this is a prop that kind of does worry me. We have somewhat seen his role diminish a little bit. I don't want to touch it. And just to recap this, guys, to me, we are either taking, and I didn't really touch on this too much, we are either taking Gibbs for over his receiving yards, which we are seeing currently that Underdog and the average sportsbook line has it set at 27.5, which as we saw yesterday, that slight yard difference or 0.5 difference can really be the make or break on a bet hitting or not hitting. And this is one in which if you think the Raiders are going to keep it close, kind of like I do, I might just be betting this over. If you think the Lions are, an elite team, then you want to bet the over for 15.5 rushing attempts for Jahmyr Gibbs. So now we're going to switch up again to the Raiders. We are getting a little bit better props on their end, so might be spending a little bit more time there. So we get into the Las Vegas Raiders, and we are going to see Josh Jacobs for under receiving yards is kind of one that's popping. And I just want to take a peek at all the Josh Jacobs props that we are currently getting. And the reason I want to do that is because we are seeing a healthy Jimmy G, we are seeing a healthy Davante Adams, and a healthy Jacoby Myers. We've really only seen this once thus far this season. And so with Michael Mayer playing a bigger role as well, I'm wondering how Josh Jacobs is going to be used in the passing game. Okay. We saw last week he had 4 targets, only 1 reception. That's not really a true sample of what's going to occur, but I do think this game against Denver is probably the best indication because that was really the last time we saw this team kind of healthy. They ended up winning that game. And my reason being, it's Jacoby Myers is going to get targeted heavily. You're going to see Davante Adams get targeted heavily. And so my question is, will we even see Josh Jacobs involved in the passing game? Now, if they're playing from behind, sure, you do expect that. But when we look at kind of the receiving props that we are getting there for Josh Jacobs at 3.5 receptions, that seems to be a little bit too high for me. I might be betting the under there, especially given the fact that Myers, Adams, and their tight ends are getting a little bit more involved. And so looking at last week, he had 7 receptions, and this was without Jimmy G, and 12 targets. They made an emphasis to get him the ball kind of early in that game, and he ended up having a pretty good game. That being said, I think with Jimmy G there, we're going to see that this line is going to have a pretty good chance to be a push, I think. And it's I still think the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease here where, he's kind of been chirping saying that they need to give him the football in order to win. And I think we might see that occur in this game. That being said, at the same time, we are seeing Jacoby Myers at 5 receptions. Now the data is telling us to bet the under here. And don't get me wrong, that could be right. But we look at his game log here, playing heavy snaps, playing more snaps than Davante Adams. And he's only had 1 game thus far this series where he did get under that total. Now that was a game in which Davante Adams really went off, but that was also a game without Jimmy G as well. And so now the fact that we are going to have Jimmy G, I do think Jacoby Myers, we can kind of just throw out that game. And so we've seen every other game, he's either gotten 5 receptions or, really dominated the over. The targets have been heavily there as well. And so this is where I'm struggling today, guys. I got to break down the slate how I see it. And this is one where I don't like betting the under here. I know it's only a 51% chance for that to hit. But this might be a situation where now that I'm talking through it, I might bet Myers for over. I might bet Davante Adams for over. And then if we're doing that, let's see if we got any pass completions for Jimmy G. That might be a situation where I do over pass completions, and we see that game log. I don't love that game log there either, but I think that might be the approach to go with in this one. Let's see pass attempts 34.5. Yeah, probably not doing that one either, but I do think there's a little bit of correlation there. And now lastly, I do just want to touch on some tackles plus assist props that we have. Not the best, but I might just be tossing this one in there for Anzalone here, where, you know, about almost a 54% chance to hit. I'm kind of fine with that, and I'll show you guys kind of the results from yesterday. I mentioned I had added this in there yesterday. And like, this is one of the slips that I ran out there. Now these ones were like 60% chance to hit, and they hit. They barely hit though. You know, like I said, like yesterday was a weird day for like Vegas lines where like it was super close for a lot of them. Unfortunately, with this slip, freaking Desmond Ridder got replaced for Taylor Heineke, and Matt Collins ended up having a good game. That was frustrating. And then here's another one where I just solely did tackles and assists. So we can see on the day, pretty good, like 4 out of 6 there. You know, we'll take that. One just barely missed as well, whereas the other one's echoing it, like super close with these 3. But my point here is that this one probably gives us the best chance at hitting a prop. And so I am going to give you guys a bet slip for this game, but I'm also going to give you guys one just for like the bet of the day as well. But I want to highlight, you know, one prop bet that we are currently getting. This one is basically, you know, really good. I know it's basically being valued as a push here. I want to point that out for Jake here. But the average sportsbook line is saying, all right, he has about a 48% chance to get over 3.5 shots on goal. But the projection data likes him for 4, and the PrizePicks line is set at 3. So to me, that's probably the biggest edge that we are currently getting on hockey. So that is one I want to toss in there. We look at some MLB props. We're going to see Corey Seager really standing out throughout the season, now postseason as well. We have seen that these prop bets where the Vegas line and the projection data is both over by 2, they have cashed like 3 out of 4 times. It's a very good rate there. Now, I'm not saying that's going to occur today, but you know, it was one that really carried us through the MLB season. Then Max Scherzer, I hate this one, to be honest with you guys, but we are seeing, like, he has been someone that has been hit or miss, don't get me wrong. And I guess there could be a little bit of a stacking opportunity there, like Corey Seager and like the Texas Rangers, if they go off and have a really good game, you would expect Max Scherzer to be able to get a win there. That's really for you guys to decide. It does feel a little bit more risky than I'm comfortable with, but at the same time, very hit or miss. And then just a couple of NBA props that we are currently getting. We're not getting like any elite props, but we are getting a lot of decent ones on the slate. And so if I was just trying to make a bet for this Sunday or Monday Night Football matchup, it would be this one. We saw Anzalone for under 7.5 tackles and assists is a pretty good bet, about a 53.7% chance that that's the best one that we have available on the board. Game script wise, I think that this game's gonna be closer than Vegas thinks. If you guys think I'm wrong, that's fine. Bet the over rushing attempts then for Jahmyr Gibbs, because I think those two correlate pretty well. This does feel like we're forcing it. I did mention we could bet Jimmy G for over completions because, you know, he's halfway there with these two. Then you just need to get, you know, Josh Jacobs a few catches, everyone else a couple of catches as well. But I do think we're going to see the targets funneled to these two once again. And now I'll show you guys my more favorable bet for today. So this is where, if you want to toss in Davante Adams to still get exposure to NFL, you can. You could go with Anzalone for over his tackles as well. Sorry, it'd be under for Anzalone. Okay, but then these are like the best prop bets that we're getting on the day. 54% chance for this one to hit. This one is set at 14.5 on Underdog and currently on the sports books for Benedict Mathurin. So seemingly a pretty good point edge there as well. That one has a 54% chance to hit. So it feels like a tight game or a tight day. I just want to make that clear. But that's going to be all for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. Comment your guys' favorite play. Remember, we are always trying to win together. I know yesterday a lot of people gave out some pretty good props, so let's keep that up. That's going to be all for today. Thanks for watching. And as always, let's keep cashing.